talk a bit about the budget before we move on, the highs and lows of the budget, and then maybe the elephant in the room, which was what wasn't discussed. But around the panel, 10 being the best, Derek, 1 being the worst, what number would you have given the budget?
A solid fail.
But no, what number?
It was 3.
3?
Yeah, 3.
3 out of 10?
Yes.
Why?
Well, look at it. What have they actually produced? It's a do-nothing budget. If you look at the 2 bills that were put under urgency, it was about carbon credits and about the tax for smokes, and that they didn't need to go under urgency. If they weren't there, what would there be? There'd be nothing there in the budget. So it was a failed budget.
All right, 3 out of 10. Barbara Kuriga.
Oh, there's lots in the budget. 10 out of 10. Bill's up there watching me. We got infrastructure for roading, we got tourism beds, we got special education funding, we got it for the most disadvantaged kids in school, Farmac funding, bowel screening. There's a whole range plus tertiary education.
All right.
There's a whole range of things
so a
in
3
there.
out of 10. You got a
10 out of
10 out of 10 because Bill Inglis is watching the puppetry.
No, because I believe it.
Oh, yeah, right,
But
well,
he is
okay.
watching.
All right,
He's a little bit afraid.
Just Jacinda Ardern, out of 10, what would you have given the budget?
I reckon 3 is probably
3.
fair. Yeah. I had Nick Smith in the house just before we came down here, said this was the best budget of a generation. This generation can't afford to buy a house. We have 80,000 young people not in employment, education or training. Wages haven't gone up and aren't set to go up for another 2 years. For most people,
Wages
this budget would have
ahead
felt
of
meaningless.
inflation.
Okay, so
particularly on housing.
what did you like in the budget?
Probably from the child protection perspective, there was 36 million in there to cover the deficit that SIFS has, and that was really necessary.
Derek, what did you like in the budget?
Look, everyone agrees that SIFS needs to change. It's been broken for a long time, and there has been a step towards that, and we've got to wait and see what the actual conclusion would be, but it's a step towards the right direction.
One of the things that wasn't addressed, Barbara, and this is the thing that's been gaining traction actually, and this issue is never going to go away, and that is the 16% of the total budget that is spent on superannuation, caring for the elderly. Why are we not addressing the elephant in the room in the budget, which is superannuation, raising the age?
Because at this point, our government don't believe we need to. We're spending 5%.
At what point will we need to?
To give you an example, we're spending 5% of GDP on it. The OECD countries, the average is 9%, so we're well below that. We're also, the third fastest growing. We've got a really good economy at the moment, and there's no need to address it right now. We're quite happy with the way it's going.
That is not true. At the very least, we should be putting contributions into the super fund. That's been suspended since 2010. You're not reinstating that until 2020.
At what age, Jacinda?
Well, at least I believe in a universal super, first of all, and non-means tested. Now, we can have a debate about the age, but actually at the core of it, we've got to make sure that there's something there to pay future retirees. And at the moment, Nationals reneged on the responsibility to save in order to pay super later.
Actually, we're encouraging people to save for themselves.
No.
Yes, we
the
are.
government has $18 billion we've foregone
Derek,
in savings for super.
Why don't people want to talk about this? Many other countries are doing this from 65 to 67. It's going to happen sooner or later. Why are politicians not getting the courage, Derek, to talk about it?
No, because we can afford it. It's true that the evidence is there that we can afford it at 65 now. We can afford it for a very long time.
So you side with National on this?
No, we side with New Zealand First on this.
Hey, but we said the same thing.
They're just catching up.
All right, I'll come back to you guys, but we've got an economist in the room here with Hayley.
Yes, I'm here with John Ballinghall, the Deputy Chief Executive of the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research. Got that right?
Perfect.
Excellent. So what do you think? Do you think we should be seeing superannuation in the budget talked about?
I find it very hard to believe that it's not being talked about. This is a $100 billion challenge. We spend about $15 billion at the moment on super. By 2060, we're talking about $115 billion. So I find it very difficult to say that we shouldn't be talking about it and that we can afford it. It's simply not true.
What happens if we don't, if we put our heads in the sand?
If we put our heads in the sand, we've got a few choices. We could cut spending elsewhere in the economy, health, education, housing. Doesn't seem very appealing. We could increase taxes. That's not great for the economy. Or we could take on a whole lot more debt, which both governments over the past few decades have been working hard not to do. Not appealing options, but we're not going to be able to afford things if we just ignore the debate.
So some people are talking about graduated superannuation. Do you agree with something like that? You can choose to put it off?
Well, we're seeing all around the world, countries are putting up the age of entitlement. The UK, Australia, Denmark, Ireland, they're all pushing up to 67, 68. Again, that's been taken off the table here by the National Party. That seems like a ridiculous option, given that we have to face these costs somehow. So that's one option. Another option is to look at means testing. Again, politically difficult, but we can't ignore it. And the third option is looking at how much we actually pay super. Do we link it to the average wage, which it is at the moment, or do we link it to CPI inflation, which we do with all our other benefits?
So it's a little bit divisive, and it's not going to please everybody.
Yeah. Very good, Hayley. Thank you very much. I want to pick up on what John was saying there. So, as he's one economist of many, it says, Barbara, this is fiscally irresponsible of you to keep on delaying this issue.
As you said, he's one of many, and it's not that it's not being discussed. We feel at this stage that it's affordable.
Do you think that super will be there for you when you're 65?
I'm not that far from 65, you know what?
Well, you don't,
Yes.
It will be. What do you reckon,
Yes.
Derek? Will it be there for you when you're 65?
Look, I believe so, yes. But look, I mean, if we're talking about the cost of it or the expense, Jacinda's already brought up the fact that the contributions to the super fund have stopped. I mean, we've missed out literally on about $16 billion that this country would have because the government stopped those contributions. But not only that, at the moment we've got parents of immigrants coming without working 1 hour within 10 years. That all they need to be here in New Zealand for 10 years without working, without paying an ounce of tax, and they get full super. That is not fair.
So it's back to the immigrants again. That's blaming the immigrants again.
No. That's the reality of the situation, Wallace, and that's not fair. Take a look at the fairness of that. We've got people who are 65 who have worked for 50 years of their lives paying tax.
All right, so what are you saying?
Sometimes it's been the highest
what are
tax,
you saying about the
66%.
immigrants? Are you saying that some of the immigrants coming in should not get it or not be eligible for super?
Well, there needs to be restrictions put around it, absolutely, because we have got a lack of fairness between the taxpayers of this country who have worked 50 years compared to parents who come along who get full super, not working an hour.
I'm going to come back to talk about this other thing that economists have been talking about, which is called the universal allowance, the universal basic income. But Hayley, to the audience, what do some people think? Do they think that this will happen up to 67 in time? What do you
I've
think?
actually spotted the ACT Party leader, David Seymour.
Ah.
I mean,
Yeah,
what do you
wow.
think about this? Should we be raising the age?
Oh, look, people in my generation know we're not going to get super at 65. We just want to actually be able to have a discussion and plan. And at present, our Prime Minister and, frankly, our opposition are saying we can't have the debate. And I think that's wrong. I think we should be able to discuss what is super going to look like when current university students retire, because that's the sort of time frame over which people plan for these things.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that political message.
He just happened to be here when we were talking about this particular issue. The universal allowance. What do you think? Is this an idea whose time has come, Jacinda?
The universal basic income?
A UBI.
Yeah,
So what is it? Everyone gets about a couple of $100, and the people that need it top up.
Again, Labor's been bold enough to say, why aren't we having these conversations that might not be ready for the here and now, but actually going forward, they do address some of the issues that we have around a highly transient working population, around the fact that some of our benefits aren't adequate. If you start having a big conversation.
So is Labor endorsing
about the UBI.
a UBI? Is Labor endorsing a universal basic income?
No, we tried to start a debate and a discussion just like we did with superannuation. We've always been willing to have those debates. What we needed was that for not to be misrepresented when we did.
Will super be there when you're 65?
If Labor's in government, it will be. But look, with current planning, I'm being honest. Look, at the moment, the government isn't saving in order to pay for the next generation's super. With the contributions frozen right now, by 2030, we won't be able to afford to pay for universal superannuation. It's as simple as that. They've got to start the contributions again.
Okay.